We are joined now by former Republican Congressman David Jolly of Florida and former Democratic Congressman Max Rose of New York. Guys, thanks so much for coming in. An extra treat to have you both in studio with us today. So in 2016, David, Trump, of course, vowed to lock her up in reference to Hillary Clinton. He didn't follow through with that. But is there a sense that he in 2024 could put together an administration and that would ultimately follow through with doing what he just said?
Absolutely. And this is a very dangerous moment. And I think it's why we always have to talk about the stakes of November as much as we talk about the race itself. The stakes are a president who has said, I will be your retribution, and now says to the media, maybe I will throw in jail Democratic officials. Notice he didn't say why. He didn't say that there had been a crime committed. He just said, maybe I need to do that. That is my retribution. And we also know he will surround himself with people who will support those actions, not try to slow him from doing that. If he had any checks in his first administration, it was a few adults in the room who tried to slow them. It also was courts in the first administration that largely held. But we're now 8 years into the denigration of the courts as well. This is a terrifying cycle, and it's okay to recognize it as such and recognize that the American people have a choice in November that matters.
There has been largely nothing but backup for Trump on the Republican side. In fact, just recently, Max, 11 Senate Republicans put out a letter saying that White House had made a mockery of the rule of law. You have conservative Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito in arguments about presidential immunity, suggesting prosecutors can't be trusted to act in good faith. So in 2020, Trump and his GOP allies were attacking the electoral system. Now they're doing the same with the legal system. How dangerous is this?
Well, it's interesting. If you see what Trump and actually his family members have been speaking to in recent interviews, they've spoken to their own naivete in 2016. Trump has recently said, I came in and I was just a real estate guy. I actually didn't know what I was doing, but now I do, and the people around me won't be, quote unquote, deep state oriented. They will be loyal soldiers for my cause of retribution, vengeance, and to rip apart the very fabric that is our nation today. That's what they're openly promising. And it's so critical in terms of the messaging over the course of the next 4 or 5 months that the Democrats not get sucked into any notions of back and forth or this or that, but speak to the utter craziness. That is what Donald Trump is promising to do openly, as well as what he has already done in his first term. And I believe, as do I believe my colleague over here, that if that is the message over the course of the next 4 or 5 months, you'll see a market shift in the polls, and the Biden team will win. Well,
the Biden team is shifting on messaging. We heard President Biden at a fundraiser this week talking about Donald Trump having snapped. The same fundraiser, he said, for the first time in American history, a former president that is a convicted felon is now seeking the office of the presidency. Calling Trump a felon, David, what effect could that rhetorical shift have? Do you expect President Biden to say it more often, use that word felon, and you think it matters?
I prefer the word criminal. Donald Trump's an adjudicated criminal. A felon is just a type of criminal he is. That's a class of the crime. But I think it's important that Joe Biden be presidential in this moment, and that is not to put the brakes on him following this lead. He has to be presidential and not play Trump's game in the trenches. But the president needs to talk to the American people about the seriousness of Donald Trump's threat to democracy and his lack of fitness. So to Max's point, I think there are 3 elements in every Biden message. It's what he's done for the country, his policies on education, healthcare, transportation, infrastructure. It's Donald Trump's lack of fitness as now an adjudicated criminal, and then it's the stakes for our democracy. If he's on message with those 3 themes, the tethering between a president who wakes up wanting to work for you and a man who's unfit for our democracy becomes clear.
Max, meantime, Donald Trump and his campaign is touting record fundraising in the month of May, fueled in large part after the conviction, $141 million in small dollar donations, they said. Should those numbers scare Democrats?
No, money's not going to matter here. Look, if this was an assembly race or a city council race, money matters. This is a current president running against a former president. Their name ID is 99% or above, and they're both going to have more than enough money.
Sure, but doesn't money also help to put people in place on the ground to reach out to voters in a more personal way, maybe help to turn them out, that sort of impact?
Genuinely, there are, at a certain point when it comes to money in politics, because we're not even talking about super PAC money now, diminishing rates of impact. You can only, what are they going to start putting a billboard on the moon here? What will matter, though, is the message. And, you know, what Donald Trump and his campaign have repeatedly tried to do is say, listen, before COVID, everything was great. And that is a message that has to be tackled head on. The Biden campaign needs to, and I believe they are and will continue to, continually remind the American people of the chaos and dysfunction and incompetency that was the Trump pre-COVID presidential years. And guess what? The American people in 2018 and in 2020 absolutely rejected that, and they will do so again in this upcoming election.
David, real quickly, Trump's attorneys are now asking for his gag order to be removed related to the hush money case here in New York. After the conviction, Michael Cohen's family was doxxed on some of the right-wing websites. They've tried to dox jurors. What would happen if the gag order is lifted?
Well, Mershon has a difficult decision here because the case has been adjudicated now, but for sentencing and appeal. I think Donald Trump's attorneys are really worried about the former president facing jail time. Look, if Donald Trump would just shut up, he probably wouldn't go to jail. But not only is he questioning the justice system with his own rhetoric, he's also going to the line of violating a gag order. And if he violates that gag order before sentencing, the case to put him in jail is real. And his attorneys know that. I think it's just good lawyering.
Former Congress members David Jolly and Max Rose, thank you both. Nice to see you.